There's at least two interesting trends that have happened in the last 10 years. One is the proliferation of mobile technologies. So almost everybody now has a smartphone or a mobile phone of some kind, what you would call a cell phone in America, I suppose. So that's the first trend. The second trend is social media. The ability of people to connect together and to share and to create content. And I suppose if you put those two together, if you combine mobile technology with social media, what you've got is a very powerful means of creating content on the move, sharing it, revising it, participating together in online discussions. A whole range of social learning opportunities are open to people when you put those two kind of technologies together. So I think that's the major trend that's happened in the last 10 years. William Gibson, who is a great Canadian science fiction writer, the author of Neuromancer, for instance, he once said something very profound. He said, "The future is with us. The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed." And what he means by that, I think, is that it's patchy. That there are things that are happening in some places that are not happening in other places, and vice versa. And what that means is that we have what we call a digital divide. There are some people who have the technology and others who don't. There are others who can use the technology and those who can't. And there are some who will use it and some who won't. So we have things like technophobia, which are already prevalent in some organizations, which prevent people from using these technologies. So although we are mature in some ways in using the technologies, in other ways we're lagging behind. So it's very patchy and very uneven. I've been involved briefly with something called the Horizon Project, which is a project which gets together experts from around the world, and it sits us down around a virtual table and it asks us to predict what will happen, what will be the predominant features in work-based learning or university-based learning in the next 1 year, 3 years and 5 years. In 1 year we can probably predict fairly accurately. And this last year, we predicted, for instance, that things like mobile learning would become very prevalent, and so would e-books. The 3-year prediction is a little bit more difficult. Here, we're now starting to predict that things like learner analytics, the big data picture, will actually become quite widespread in universities and in organizations. And other things such as augmented reality and things like gestural computing, these things are actually a little bit farther in the distance, and we don't know when they will be widely adopted, but we know they're coming. So what I predict is that what we're seeing now with things like touch tablets and touch handsets, such as the iPhone or the iPod Touch or the new Androids or whatever, those are a transitionary technology between the old keyboard and mouse and the gestural technology, where you start to use just your hands or your voice to command the machine. I think we're going to see that within the next 5 to 10 years becoming more prevalent. And as such, that I think is going to be the future, non-touch, gestural computing. Personally, distance education for me is a bit passé now. It's a bit kind of out of date, that term, because there is no geographical distance anymore in terms of the way we connect with each other. We have to, I think, revise our paradigm, our concept of distance. Distance for me is now psychological. That's the barrier to overcome. Geographical distance isn't a problem because we can connect remotely and we can replicate and do most of the things we do in the classroom at a distance now. One of the impacts of technology on organizations is that I think many organizations see technology as a primary means of boosting their productivity. They don't always make the connection between productivity and better learning in the organization. Now, that's something that I think many organizations have to reconcile and have to think about, that if you have a well-trained and well-educated workforce, then you'll get better productivity naturally. Many see technology as good for the process and for the productivity, but they need to make the link with training. And I think some large organizations find training a kind of an inconvenient expense. But I'll quote Derek Bock, who said, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Often I think organizations can avert and avoid disasters by training their workforce better. And so the technology that they already have in the organization is good, but they need to also consider that there are other ways of using these technologies that are innovative and different and can give them the edge, if you like, in the business world if they do them properly.